Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Sarah Wong. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Minors, the elderly, and the disabled will not need to use the LeaveHomeSafe app when eating out and visiting places. Top Beijing official in charge of Hong Kong affairs defends electoral reform and dismisses Western-style democracy. And a developer is offering 300 homes at cost price to help young families. The government has made it mandatory for everyone to use the LeaveHomeSafe app when entering restaurants starting Thursday. Only children, the elderly, and the handicapped will have the option of filling out forms instead. Wong has the latest.
The LeaveHomeSafe app will soon become an indispensable part of going out for most Hong Kongers. The government announced today that starting on December 9th, customers must use the LeaveHomeSafe app when entering eateries. Only people under the age of 15, over 65, and people with disabilities will be allowed to fill out paper forms instead. This also goes for bars, saunas, party rooms, karaoke venues, game centers, and gyms. Type A restaurants, where only 2 people per table are allowed, and dine-in stops at 6 p.m. have also been fully canceled. This means there can no longer be eateries that do not participate in social distancing measures. Type B places, where it's 4 customers per table and staff are required to get tested once every 2 weeks, can extend their operating hours to 11 p.m. A Food and Health Bureau spokesperson said these measures are in response to fast-spreading variants that continue to emerge globally. This comes as authorities added 3 more names to its list of Group A countries after Omicron cases were reported in these places. Non-residents who have been to Maldives, Senegal, and Tunisia within the past 21 days are banned from entering the city, while residents must go through 3 weeks of quarantine upon their arrival. Meanwhile, the Cook Islands and Luxembourg were taken off the list after the government confirmed new cases discovered in these places were not the Omicron variant. Hong Kong reported 5 new imported cases today. All of them were of the L452R strain. Wong, HKIBC.
The top Beijing official in charge of Hong Kong and Macau affairs rejected accusations that the electoral reform was to silence the opposition. Xia Baolong said the changes were to ensure that pro-independence figures cannot govern Hong Kong. In a video speech, he added that SAR had wasted time blindly chasing Western-style democracy, leading to deep social divisions and inefficient governance. He hailed the upcoming Legislative Council elections as representative, balanced, and competitive. In a rare move, the government has written to the Wall Street Journal rebutting an editorial calling the Legislative Council elections a sham vote. The strongly worded letter was penned by Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Eric Tsang. He accused the journal of scaremongering by saying that Hong Kongers risked harsh penalties if they protested in public on December 19th. Zhang also slammed claims that all candidates had to receive pre-approval from the Communist Party. He was referring to an editorial last week, which called on readers not to forget how China crushed the autonomy it promised to the SAR. A man accused of trying to snatch a gun from a police officer has pleaded not guilty to his charges. Chow Pak-kwan ended up getting shot by a live round in November 2 years ago in one of the most violent days during the anti-government protests. Wong has the details.
Chow Pak-kwan was 21 years old when he was shot by a policeman. Now, over 2 years later, he's denying in court that he did anything wrong. Chow and another protester, Wu Zi-kin, are both accused of obstructing a police officer and attempting to grab his gun. Chow also holds an additional charge of resisting arrest. The pair have pleaded not guilty to all counts. The case stems from events on November 11, 2019, during the height of the anti-government protests. According to the prosecution side, protesters had called for a citywide strike that day. The officer in question arrived to Saiwan-ho alone that morning, where he saw black-clad people trying to disrupt traffic. The policeman wanted to move the roadblocks away. That's when he suddenly heard someone shouting, "Don't let him get away." He turned to see several men approaching him. A man in a white jacket took the lead in getting close. The officer drew his gun and tried to subdue the man, but was met with resistance. Chow and Wu also closed in, and the policeman responded by pointing his gun at Chow. But the defendant continued to step forward, stretching his right hand in an alleged attempt to grab the gun. Wu and another man also got behind the officer. Threatened by the prospect of getting attacked front and back, the policeman opened fire, hitting Chow. A fight broke out. Someone hit the officer in the neck, while Wu tried to grab his gun. 2 more shots were fired without hitting anyone. Other officers arrived to the scene at this point and helped subdue Chow and Wu. Chow was sent to hospital, where he eventually had parts of his liver and kidney removed. The officer suffered a scratch on his finger. More members of the force are set to testify in the upcoming days. News clips and dashcam footage will also be used as evidence. Wong, HKIBC.
Police officers from the Animal Cruelty Unit have launched an investigation after over 30 pigeons collapsed at a Taipo public housing estate since last night. And Nilau tells us more.
The gruesome attack happened in Hangyu House of Fuhang Estate in Taipo. Police and inspectors from the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals arrived this morning to find 13 dead pigeons at the scene. Slices of bread were scattered across a nearby slope, raising suspicions that someone had poisoned the animals. The food scraps were taken away for analysis, while toxicology tests will also be conducted on the pigeons to determine the cause of their deaths. The discovery came just one night after another 18 pigeons collapsed at the same spot.
案件現時係暫時列作懷疑對殘酷對待動物。
Chief Inspector Feng Wai-ho said they have classified the case as suspected animal abuse. He said officers specializing in animal cruelty investigations will now step in. A district councillor revealed that swarms of pigeons have gathered in the area for some time.
餵白鴿咁樣造成一啲滋擾，因為
But Ho Wai-lam said that was only because some people had been regularly feeding the birds, despite residents warning them against the practice. Ho added the birds have become a nuisance, leaving behind droppings in the public areas and open-air car parks. Under the Wild Animals Protection Ordinance, people who feed animals in banned areas, such as country parks, face fines of $10,000. But only fixed penalty tickets of $1,500 can be issued to offenders outside designated regions, leading to calls for widening the law's coverage. Anila, HKIBC.
Now imagine if you can become the owner of a 300-square-foot private flat with a down payment of just $135,000. It's not a scam, but a non-profit project by New World Development to help young families get on the property ladder. And Nilau explains.
While more than 18,000 private homes are slated for completion this year, their asking price has kept many aspiring homeowners at bay. In a bid to change the perception that developers only care about profits, New World Development is now trying to help people get on the property ladder. A non-profit social enterprise established by the company said it will sell a batch of 300 homes at half the market price. It will sit on a plot of land to be donated by the developer in Western New Territories. The flats will range between 300 and 500 square feet and will be sold at cost price of around $2.7 million to $5 million. The criteria for applicants will be similar to those of the home ownership scheme, although young families may be given priority. There will also be resale restrictions to prevent buyers from making a quick profit. The body is now in discussions with the government on finalizing land premium concessions and hopes to announce more details in the coming months.
完全係一個不牟利嘅社企嚟嘅，咁所以咧我就完全唔覺得有呢個所謂咩官商勾結嘅存在。
Former Lands Director Patrick Lau, who now sits on the NGO's advisory committee, dismissed allegations of collusion with authorities. He insisted no profit will be made from the project. Annie Lau, HKIBC.
And coming up after the break. Myanmar court sentences Aung San Suu Kyi to 4 years in jail.